Arnold Ebiketie was a second-round pick out of Penn State. He was a guy who transferred to Penn State for his senior year after playing at Temple, and he really has put a lot of great plays on film so far in his rookie year. Do I think he's the best edge defender, the best pass rush edge defender in this rookie class? No, obviously not. But I included him in this breakdown to be honest with you because I remember watching a lot of his film from at Penn State and I was impressed. And B, he's had a lot of quarterback pressures or a lot of wins in his pass rush snaps that haven't necessarily translated to sacks. He only has one sack so far. I think he should have had another one, and I believe I'll show you that in this video. He does have a forced fumble, 6 quarterback hits on about 265 snaps. Only had one tackle against the Bengals in Week 7, playing about 60% of the defensive snaps so far, and I think showing a lot of versatility. I'm going to let some of these plays run. He is spot shadowed before each play. He's a high level effort guy, tons of ability to redirect, uh, high level awareness, makes plays at the line of scrimmage, behind the line of scrimmage here, as you see a screen against the 49ers, or even behind the line of scrimmage. I think he's super quick. They've got him playing into the boundary a lot, so he doesn't have a nickel defender outside him to support him in his coverage responsibility. And I think he's got the quickness and the speed and athleticism to do that. Plays on either side. So you see the previous two plays, he was on the left. This one, he's on the right. Generates pressure, in my opinion, with second effort right now. Here's the first effort going inside, and then just taking this left tackle and moving him this way to get back outside and get a strip sack. I think one of the two sacks I'm going to show you in this film, to be honest with you, was called back for a penalty. So only one sack officially through 7 games, but I love his ability to redirect, and I think this play is the best illustration of it. To win the second engagement after his primary move was maybe thwarted by an offensive tackle or maybe a tight end. Do I think he's a 10 sack a year guy as a rookie? Well, no. Look at the projection, all right? But this strip sack against the 49ers, if you ask me, shows his ability to redirect and beat a left tackle clearly. I do think he runs multiple moves from pass rush snaps that I have seen. I think I'm going to give you 16 overall plays here. I find him to be decisive, a guy who has a plan pre-snap on what he wants to do. Whether that plan works or not, I'm not sure, but he's not a guy who's just letting an offensive tackle get into his chest and have a loss. There are a lot of rookies who are struggling with their pass rush. I mean, look, Travon Walker only has 1 sack. Prior to Week 7, Aidan Hutchinson had 3, but they all came in one game. So they're against Washington. So there's plenty of rookies who are not generating a ton of sacks. George Karlaftis, another guy that I'm going to talk about in this video, only has a half a sack through 7 games. Like I said, he plays on either side, either the right or the left side of the defense. That's a huge asset because of the way he impacts the game, because of his athleticism and his speed. I was a big fan of his in the pre-draft process. As a Ravens fan, I thought that he might be there in the second round, but he was drafted at 38. I think we all knew he was a borderline first-round guy, maybe early in the second round, which is where he got taken because he went to Penn State from Temple and put up 9.5 sacks and 18 tackles for loss in 1 year. So far this year, this play is a little bit representative of where he is in terms of the pass rush. There's another half step or maybe a full step, that he needs to take before the quarterback delivers the ball. His snap count has grown for the Falcons, and I think it's because they've started to recognize like how versatile he is, and the way he impacts the game. I really like him in a 3-point stance. I like him in a 2-point stance, to be honest with you as well. He's disruptive. He's a high motor, high effort guy. I'm a big fan. Disruptive is a word that I think you want as many of your defensive players to be as possible. Kind of overruns the quarterback here, Jacoby Brissett. Don't get me wrong, but I think he's aware of things mid-play, things that are developing around him. He's got great instincts, trusts his eyes, 6'3", 255. I think he's very well coached, uses his hands instinctively. He does a good job standing up against offensive linemen in short yardage situations. The athleticism to chase down quarterbacks. I know it's Jacoby Brissett, and people may have various opinions about him, but it's an NFL concept with a run going away and then the quarterback booting off of it. Ebiketie, to me, if he doesn't fold so far down inside here, if he's a little more disciplined, he ends up with a sack. So that's just an example of someone having the ability to make certain plays, and in this case, he gets a quarterback hit. But if he was in a little bit better situation on the front side at the beginning of this play, with his initial reaction, you can see his shoulders, his chest are all turned completely that way. He's got to turn his body completely around to get reoriented. If he has stayed a little flatter, somewhere around in here with his feet, then he'd be able to redirect and probably get a sack, or at least have a better opportunity to get one. An underrated pick by the Falcons, if you ask me. He looks like an 8 to 10 sack guy potentially, in my opinion. Is that this season? Is that next season? I don't know. I'm going to show you how tough he is in short yardage situations. Another QB hit where the quarterback gets the ball off again. I think his move is a pretty high level move here. And he's winning against that same left tackle. Very similar to a move I showed him using against the right tackle earlier. Gets a quarterback hit. You can see the impact he had. The ball was kind of wobbly. Still was able to get it out there and get completed. But I didn't see anybody else winning on some of these plays where I'm showing you Arnold, Ebiketie winning. I don't see anybody else winning for the Falcons in those situations. All right, against the Saints later on. Again, this is one, I think this should be his second sack. I think it's pretty close to the left tackle being guilty of a hold here. He's widened up and then rushing on the outside. I don't know. Tell me what you think in the comment section. I really like Arnold Ebiketie's game. Again, as a Ravens fan, I was looking at him as a guy that maybe we could pick in the second round if a guy like Jermaine Johnson or whoever didn't fall to the Ravens at 14, and then, of course, they passed on him anyway. Same, attempt to rip on the inside. I think this play must have been called back because the other one counted. It was a forced fumble. I think he's probably getting held right about this point. Probably still being held. Fights through it. I feel like that's something that should be called. The NFL seems to not be interested in calling holds this year. Arnold Ebiketie clearly had a win there by his third step. All right, some short yardage situations to show you his toughness. Like I said, only 6'3", 255. So it's not like you're talking about a huge guy like Travon Walker or Aidan Hutchinson. Shows how tough he is here, if you ask me. Short yardage situation is going to be a QB sneak, and one of the Falcons defenders is diving over the pile. So Ebiketie's got to redirect after stepping down. He's going to redirect back out here to Brissett and get involved with the tackle. I'm a big fan of his. Like I said, sorry, I was checking my settings for something. I'm a big fan of his, like I said. I think he's equally adept against the run at him and run concepts away from him. Athletic enough to get involved in plays. I believe he almost has a forced fumble here. I'm not sure who they credit for this forced fumble, but you could see him stepping down onto the tackle. There's a huge mass of bodies. His left arm is sneaking in here on the ball. Someone else is involved. There's another helmet here. I'm not sure if it's Ebiketie who forces the fumble or not, but all I know is he's involved in the play, plays at a high effort level, in my opinion, and the Falcons got a defensive touchdown out of that play. Same play from the all-22 angle. You can see it. Let me know what you think of his play. If you think I'm overstating his ability level, I think he's got a high-level ability against the pass and against the run. The Falcons' defense has, had some issues during the year, but I really think he's got a bright future. Does he stack up with, Kayvon Thibodeaux, Aidan Hutchinson, Travon Walker? I don't know. I just know that he's got an ability to redirect mid-play. He's strong enough to deal with tight ends, get them condensed or compressed either back into the backfield or compress the inside gap. So what I mean by that is, like, if he's responsible for this gap between the two tight ends, let's say this Kittle step to him, Ebiketie does a good enough job on run blocks to compress the gap inside of him, meaning push that tight end this way, and also maintain his gap, which in this case is like D gap between the two tight ends. That's not how the blocking scheme ends up working out. Kittle's chips and then tries to go to the second level. He ends up dealing with the outside tight end, and I think he does a pretty good job. Let me know what you think of Arnold Ebiketie. Doesn't stack up stats-wise with the other guys that are on this list, particularly the big three, the guys that were drafted early in the first round. But I love his game, love his athleticism. Even when he gets to play out in space against the pass, I think Arnold Ebiketie has shown a lot of ability. For the 38th pick for the Falcons in the draft, to me, is a great investment. Where do I rank him? I don't rank players like that. I just know that Arnold Ebiketie looks like a quality NFL edge player that they got in the second round who has first-round athletic talent. All right, the next guy on this list is one who didn't make the front picture in terms of the thumbnail for this video. I thought the other five, were better suited to be included in that picture, but I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention him. It's Boye Mafe from the Seattle Seahawks. The film is just too impressive not to show. I understand, like Travon Walker, Aidan Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeaux got all the press. They should, rightfully so. Even George Karlaftis. They're incredible players. They were at premier programs. Look, Boye Mafe went 2 picks after Arnold Ebiketie at number 40 to the Seahawks, who just had an incredible draft. They got Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant from the same draft. Boye Mafe, 6'4", 265. Played college football at Minnesota. I think he had like 7 or 8 sacks his last year there. Big physical. Right now in the NFL, he's a big physical, rugged run defender. He's a guy who can collapse gaps, make sure there's nothing on the inside, and then he's athletic enough to be able to make the tackle out when the running back bounces it. To me, this is a steal. And it's not a lot of people talking about it. He's made a lot of plays against the run so far. I think he only has 21 tackles for the year, 19 tackles for the year through 7 games, something like that. I recorded the video for this before Week 7 games, before their huge win here, Week 7. Look, he's a high-level run defender at 6'4", 265. He's athletic enough to avoid the cut block here by the fullback and then get involved in the tackle. Look at the first 2 plays I just showed you. The running back tries to bounce it. On the first one, he takes on the kick out block and then makes the tackle when the running back bounces it. This one, they're trying to cut him. That's not accidental, guys. They're trying to cut him because they can't deal with him. He's a real man out there on the edge. Kind of reminds me of a Pernell McPhee type guy, except a little bit more athletic. He was playing about 20 snaps a game through weeks 1 through 3. And then that's kind of up to like 30 snaps. I think he played a little bit less in week 7. Like I said, 6'4", 265. Against kick-out blocks, he's a real problem. Only has 1 sack and 2 quarterback hits. So right now, the impact for him is not against the pass. I have to admit that. But he's really good at run plays at him, run plays away from him. He's athletic enough and explosive enough to get involved in making the play. They're building something really good with that Seattle defense, if you ask me. To me, he's got, like I said, he's had a lot more impact against the run. He is dropping out in coverage multiple times. You can see him initially. He's lined up out here over twins, and then they're going to walk him down. Pass rush impact has been way less evident. But you get him folding inside here, making tackles. He gets involved in everything. He's a high motor guy. And the strength really catches your eyes when you watch a lot of plays. And the motor, his willingness to get involved with multiple plays. This is a high-level awareness play, man. The running back is trying to cross his face and get out to the flats. Now, he's a little bit protected to the boundary, but he's not protected because he doesn't have the nickel defender outside of him. Talked about that in the Ebiketie portion of this video as well. He's got kind of run action to him. The tackle's stepping to him. Tight end's working away, so it could be split zone. But the path of the running back does not indicate split zone. The running back is trying to cross his face. So he's catching a lot of the running back's chest and numbers when he's looking here, trying to figure. So he's got a little bit of awareness now. You can see him widen up. So he's got a little bit of awareness now in terms of the back's path. He's not going to let him cross his face. That's a pretty athletic play, if you ask me, for the tackle to be stepping to him and be able to get out there and make this tackle about 5 yards from the sideline. Keep the running back to a 3 or 4 yard gain. I think he's super athletic. And that play right there shows me that he's got a pretty high awareness level too. And then he plays on kickoffs. That's the thing that's shocking to me. Like 6'4", 265. Really good against the run. There'll be a couple plays, where I'll show you where he overcommits to the run. There'll be a play action boot here, and Andy Dalton's able to get outside of him. But he played on kickoff team, and he makes tackles. I've got him for 3 special teams tackles so far. There may be other ones because I don't have every single kickoff. Obviously, I'm missing the ones from Week 7. I didn't include any Week 7 video in this breakdown. I really like this pick, man. As a rookie, you're going to get opportunities to make plays, and you've got to make the plays that are at you. But this is a guy who appears to be able to make plays that are not his play to make. He's got motion coming at him that is not involved in his processing. You can see this safety right here starts to deal with the motion. All right, so he's absolved of any responsibility with that motion. But again, look at his eyes. He's now got the running back trying to cross his face. No, he doesn't finish the play, but he's athletic enough to get out here, force the running back inside to where his help is so somebody else can clean it up. That tackle was made or his attempt to make the tackle is about 4 or 5 yards from the sideline. To me, that's elite level athleticism. Maybe not against the pass in terms of refined pass rush moves, but I really like this player. I'm not a Seahawks fan, but I really see the method in everything that they did in the draft to try to draft big, strong guys who can make plays that maybe they're not supposed to. They end up trying to blitz an inside linebacker here who gets washed down, creating a huge gap in here. Boye Mafe is over here dealing with a tight end. And, yeah, you may say, well, coach, this is a 7-yard gain. Well, yeah, well, what if he doesn't make this tackle? What if he's not involved with this? Then who does make the tackle? Maybe number 13, or maybe this is a touchdown. They've got the type of athletes on this defense, if you ask me, that are going to be able to force you as an offense to execute 10, 12, 13 play drives. Out here on the edge, this is, I think, his only sack, taking on the tackle. Somebody else flashes in front of Jimmy G's face on this play action. It's the other D end. So Jimmy G's trying to escape him, and then Boye Mafe, I think this counts as his only sack. The line of scrimmage is like the 11, and Jimmy G ends up close to it. So I couldn't find another play that looked like it would have been his sack, to be honest with you. Another view of the same play. If you're a Seahawks fan watching the video, let me know what your impressions are of Boye Mafe so far. Like, if I'm overstating his ability so far, I would be really excited if I was a Seahawks fan for all the rookies they drafted, but especially for this one, the motor and the burst. Now, granted, this is a very similar play to one that Arnold Ebiketie had. Look, this is a boot concept to Andy Dalton. All right, so he's booting out to the edge, and he is going to get the first down or get close to it. Boye Mafe has gathered himself too far inside here. He's gone too far down the line of scrimmage, trying to get inside this gap between the tight end and the right tackle. He's trying to get in the C gap and then run down the line of scrimmage and make the tackle on a play away from him. It's not a run play. Andy Dalton ends up keeping it. And then here's Boye Mafe trying to run him down. Now, you may say, well, coach, that's still a 7-8-yard gain. I agree. But if Boye Mafe's not there, is it a 12 or 14-yard gain? It's not a house call because it's Andy Dalton, right? But he's a guy who, if you ask me, has the athleticism to try to make up for some of the, quote, rookie mistakes that he may have. Here he is down here on another kickoff against the Lions. Of course, this might have been the game of the year, right? 48-45. Crazy game. One of that I intend on looking at, in the offseason just to watch. So that's Boye Mafe right there involved with the tackle. We're going to pull this back. Hopefully that player is smooth when I'm doing a rewind function. So he's the 4. All right, so he's in his gap right now, and he's compressing this blocker to the inside. So there's nowhere for this guy to go. He's got to cut it back, and he ends up getting some yards. Watch Boye Mafe stay with the play. NFL football players give a high-level effort. But Boye Mafe seems to be a guy that gets involved in everything, whether it's to his side, whether it's away from his side. I'm a big fan of his, as you can tell. Seahawks, look, they stole this draft. They stole this draft from the whole league. They still have, I think, a first and a second from 2023, next year's draft, as part of the Russell Wilson trade. They're just set up to add pieces to the roster, or possibly use those picks to upgrade immediately if the opportunity presents itself. Plays on kickoff, plays outside linebacker, D end. To me, he's even more underrated than Arnold Ebiketie. I'm not saying he's a better player than Ebiketie. I'd like both of them. I would like both of them to be on my team. But physically gifted and strength and the burst, they're just obvious. And I think that's why he's being used on kickoff team. Let me know what you think of Boye Mafe's film. I'm only showing like 10, 12, 14 plays from each player. Clearly, he's not the best edge defender in this rookie class so far, but his contribution to the Seahawks defense and special teams was something that I thought deserved mention. The next guy that we'll talk about is George Karlaftis, a late first-round pick by the Kansas City Chiefs. And look, he's a guy who, stats-wise, clearly doesn't belong in the conversation about who's the best, right? That conversation really exists between Aidan Hutchinson, Travon Walker, and Kayvon Thibodeaux. Karlaftis, in terms of pass rush production, is just not there for the number of snaps that he's getting. But there's a few factors that are contributing to that, to be honest with you. First, he's surrounded by a lot of experienced guys. Guys who get to the quarterback consistently throughout their career and this year. Chris Jones has 5 sacks so far. Frank Clark has 3. Carlos Dunlap, who's done some good things for the Chiefs, even at his age, he has 2 sacks. Karlaftis has a half sack. right? The Chiefs have 19 as a team. So clearly he's not producing at a rate commensurate with, Jones, Clark, Dunlap, even a corner, L'Jarius Sneed, has 3.5 sacks. But it doesn't mean that Karlaftis isn't playing well. It just means his impact isn't sharp yet in the pass rush. I would say in terms of overall impact, he's lower than at least 3 guys on this list that I'm giving you. And Boye Mafe even probably has better stats for the limited number of snaps he's getting, about 30 snaps a game, which Karlaftis is between 55 and 60, with a little bit of variance there. So in terms of production for the number of times we're on the field, Karlaftis it would be ranked. You would probably rank him lower than all of those guys, maybe even Boye Mafe and Arnold Ebiketie. But I'm not really into ranking players. Like, he's strong. I mean, you'll see it on a play here in a moment against Quentin Nelson, the left guard for the Colts. He's playing 3 technique here, not edge player. He's playing D tackle essentially in this little 5-1 look that the Chiefs are giving. And he's defeating the block by a starting left guard for the Raiders. Pretty impressive play. Very strong. Another 3 technique. He's going to stem down, and he's getting doubled, into the play. There's going to be multiple examples of how the Chiefs are using him here. I don't think he's involved in their primary pass rush group for real. He's lined up in a 5 here initially. Then he's going to stem inside. Watch what he does to Nelson. I mean, Nelson is who he is, right? He's an elite player. George Karlaftis is strong enough to push him into the point of attack after getting reached kind of by his step. Karlaftis stemming down. Stemming down means, stepping down to a 3. Right as the ball is snapped, he kind of gets reached by, not reached by alignment, but reached by stepped. And then he's got the strength to just drive Nelson into the play. Nelson was probably a little surprised by the late stem, that Karlaftis had by going from a 5 technique to a 3 technique. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of sacks from him, and there's not a whole lot of pass rush wins, but it doesn't mean he's not playing well. Here he is as a 9 technique matched up against another rookie, Jelani Woods, out of Virginia. Run concept. And yeah, you get a blitzing safety. I think that's Sneed there, but I could be wrong. Involved with the tackle, and then Karlaftis finishes it off. That's what good teams do. They have multiple guys involved at the point of attack. You can see there's definitely a seam, possible 2-way go being developed here. You got the blitzing safety that impacts Taylor, and then Karlaftis finishes it off. That's a win in terms of whether Jelani Woods was able to run block him on that play or not. He's just a strong bull. I mean, I think at some point that will translate over to the pass game. It hasn't right now. And he does have a half a sack, which you'll see here, which is really kind of on his 3rd effort. And it's a split sack, obviously, with Frank Clark coming from the other side. Maybe the refinement in the pass rush moves isn't, what you want it to be right now, but they have other guys to handle all that. They have other guys, I think, that are more so dedicated to it. To me, it looks like Karlaftis is off the field in some of these obvious passing downs. But like I said, he is playing 50, 55, 60 snaps a game, so they trust him. And I think he's playing well. He's playing better than, some of the stats might indicate. Located on the right side here against the Bills. Just a clear out blitz for the nickel. And so the reason why I'm mentioning that is sometimes a guy loses a pass rush rep, and it's kind of intentional. Now, I don't mean they're trying to lose on purpose, but let me go through the entire progression of what the Chiefs are doing here. It's an incomplete pass, could have been a touchdown, yeah. So there's Karlaftis. So what I think is happening is you got Chris Jones in a 3, and he's stemming inside to the A gap. They're bringing this nickel through the B gap. So what Karlaftis is trying to do is widen that gap up a little bit. He's not trying to go at an angle like this. He's almost kind of intentionally going upfield a little bit to get this guy to set deeper to open that gap up. So sometimes the pass rush stats that we see, they should be taken with, I don't want to say a grain of salt, but they should be understood that there are times where the pass rush is a play. Just like an offensive team has a play, it's a play by the defense to get a certain guy open for the blitz. And in this case, it's not designed for Karlaftis to win. Chris Jones happens to win just because he's Chris Jones. He's 6'6", 320, 330, whatever. And he's just, a Hall of Fame type talent. My point in showing you some of this is that Karlaftis is not there in terms of pass rush to be compared with those 3 guys on his team. Dunlap, who is the guy who gets the strip sack here, Clark, and Chris Jones. Maybe even Karlaftis, isn't in the same, mention as Aidan Hutchinson, Travon Walker, Kayvon Thibodeaux in terms of where he is in the pass rush right now, but I think a lot of it has to do with opportunity too. If you were the Chiefs coaches and you wanted to try to get your best pass rush group on the field, you would include Carlos Dunlap, Frank Clark, and Chris Jones, where there's only so many more positions on the field for a guy like Karlaftis to be. Karlaftis here at left edge, 2-point stance. It's going to be just this little like fake handoff, like RPO out into the flats. Karlaftis is athletic enough to get involved in the tackle. No, it's certainly not saying he can only play against the run. Right now, he's squared up, looking in the backfield, and then once the ball's thrown, he's able to redirect. That's not a position where he should be lined up out there over a guy like Stefon Diggs. That's just hustle and effort, him trying to get out there. I like the player. I like the pick. Now, these last 4 or 5 plays that I'm going to show you, look where they got him lined up. Versus Chris Jones at edge. Frank Clark at edge. I mean, that doesn't say anything bad about George Karlaftis. It just says that they've got guys that are better at the pass rush skills than he is at this point in time. That shouldn't surprise anyone. I think it's a smart investment by the Chiefs. For real, obviously, they're a dangerous team, incredibly, talented offensively. Again, he's not on the field. You got Clark, Dunlap, Jones. So he's not on the field in a passing situation. This ends up being a sack. My point in showing you these isn't to say like, oh, he's not getting opportunities. Well, because he's getting 50-plus snaps a game. My point is to say the Chiefs seem to be okay with using him in this manner right here, as opposed to Jones, Clark, and even Dunlap, who is not pictured here either. Let me know what you think of George Karlaftis, how he's playing so far. Obviously, the stats in terms of pass rush are not there. He doesn't have a whole lot of tackles, to be honest with you. In terms of the run game, I think that will translate. Showing you some plays of him, particularly his play against Quentin Nelson. That one really impressed me, how he was able to be reached, essentially, right after the snap, and then drive Quentin Nelson back into the backfield, or at least drive him horizontally down the line of scrimmage. I really like the pick for the Chiefs, who are obviously a Super Bowl contender. Guy's getting a lot of reps on the field. Does he belong in the conversation for the best edge defender so far? Well, no. I'd kind of put him in that group with Ebiketie and Mafe. And the final 3 guys clearly are the ones that have the most talent, had the largest reputation coming out of college, and have had the best production so far. Next guy was really one of my favorite players to look at in the pre-draft process. If you're new to my channel or never heard me say it before, this is really the first draft that I tried to evaluate 50, 60 players, watch film of, buy a bunch of external hard drives to fit all the film onto, and then organize the film in a way that I could try to present to people, or at least talk about it in video format. Kayvon Thibodeaux, I thought, was unfairly kind of put in a little box and talked about in the pre-draft process, and I think he's playing pissed off as a result. And good for him. I hope he holds on to that. Anger is a gift in a lot of cases. Can be a pure motivation to try to prove people wrong. And I hope Kayvon Thibodeaux, he's 21 years old. He's 21 years old, playing in New York, one of the biggest markets in the world. 6-1 football team at this point. And he's made a lot of plays. Only has 14 tackles, 10 solos. Doesn't have any tackles for loss, according to the stat sheet. 2 quarterback hits, 1 sack, the big forced fumble on Lamar, and then has a fumble recovered, which I'll show you here against the Bears. I think he's playing better than the stats indicate. Let's check out some of the film so you can see it for yourself. He's going to be spot shadowed before most of these plays. Do I think he's the best edge defender as a rookie in the league this year? Well, no. I mean, to be honest with you, I probably would have him behind Travon Walker, but I think he has just as much potential as Walker or Aidan Hutchinson. I think he presents matchup problems. Like, for example, here, I'm a Ravens fan, but this is a matchup problem for the Ravens. Patrick McCarry going against Kayvon Thibodeaux. It's my opinion that a lot of these pass rush situations where a guy doesn't win the initial engagement, the player who normally wins the second or third engagement in terms of the hand fight, in terms of the move that's being run, is just a better athlete. It's also about technique, but Kayvon Thibodeaux is just a better athlete than Patrick McCarry here. Once he gets the second push on McCarry, he's able to maintain his balance and continue pressing forward. McCarry's just not athletic enough to deal with him. Is that always going to be the case for Kayvon Thibodeaux? Well, no. He's an edge rusher, right? He's an outside linebacker. He's a very versatile one, too. That's the one thing that strikes me about him. Travon Walker is versatile. He's being asked to do multiple things for the Jags. Aidan Hutchinson, in my opinion, is a little less versatile in terms of the total number of techniques that he can demonstrate in a per-game basis. To me, Kayvon Thibodeaux is the most versatile guy. I loved his pass drops at Oregon during his last year. I really thought that he was a guy who had unique awareness when he was asked to cover in zones, particularly to the boundary. Great pass rush motor, great motor against the run, takes on blocks well. And then, oh, by the way, like he has a knack for knocking passes out of the air when he's not going to win, when he's not going to get to the quarterback before the ball is thrown. I think I've got him at 3 this year. I don't know what the stats, are that I just read out to you. I don't think I referred to them. But to be honest with you, this is something that all the Giants seem to be doing, but I thought I noticed it in his game last year at Oregon as well, although he didn't have as many situations where he just wasn't winning the pass rush, duel between him and the tackle. Unblocked here against the Bears, a clear, pass deflection. These are the types of things that happen, and then your teammates can get an interception. That one almost looks like a pick six if the ball ends up higher. I think he's a big part of what the Giants are doing on defense. I really do. When Ojulari is out, he's just clearly their best edge defender in terms of athleticism, in terms of explosiveness. You saw the way that he finished that fourth quarter forced fumble on Lamar with the strip sack. Another tipped pass against Aaron Rodgers. I believe this was third down, almost intercepted, like I said. The very next play, he's on the other side. Aaron Rodgers kind of throws it away, throws to the other side of the formation, and it's also tipped by one of his teammates. You can see there's a D tackle here who's kind of switched rush, and he's also got his hands up. Seems to be something the Giants are focused on. It's an indication of high effort, and it kind of goes against some of the things that were said about Kayvon Thibodeaux during the pre-draft process, or kind of some of the things that were whispered about, at least. All right, this is a sick play. He's the read man in the Ravens QB power read play, all right? So if you're unfamiliar with it, the running back is going to cross Lamar's face, and he's going to go parallel to the line of scrimmage. So he's running towards the sideline. After the mesh, whether Lamar keeps it or not, he's going to run off tackle. That line's actually kind of, it's kind of like this, off tackle, because you're getting all down blocks by these guys, all right? And Kayvon Thibodeaux is the read man. So normally as a read man, you're either going to get upfield and take away the running back, and the Ravens are gashing people when they do that because Lamar's just keeping it and running off tackle, or you're going to step down, force a give read to the running back, and then the running back's got the edge and somebody, a strong safety or a linebacker's got to fold over the top. Not if it's Kayvon Thibodeaux. Kayvon Thibodeaux forces a give read by Lamar by stepping down. Then, once J.K. Dobbins gets it, should Dobbins maybe continue running to the sideline? Yes, I think he probably should. But point is, Kayvon Thibodeaux is athletic enough and then strong enough to finish the tackle in a manner that keeps J.K. Dobbins to a 4-yard gain. That's not normal. That's not the way I know this. I'm a Ravens fan. I've seen this play run this year. It's gashing people. It gashed the Giants when it wasn't run against Kayvon Thibodeaux. And actually, he did have one rep where he went upfield, Lamar kept it, and then gained like 11 yards down by the 15-yard line, 16-yard line. In this case, he forces a give read, has the athleticism. Watch his hips. Hips are square, then they're pointed to the sideline, then they're pointed almost in the exact opposite direction when J.K. Dobbins tries to cut it back. That's elite athleticism. That's elite among the elite, which is NFL athletes. That's a rare quality, if you ask me, especially to be able to do that against an athlete the caliber of J.K. Dobbins. All right, a really random play. You can see at the beginning of it, inside linebacker is kind of giving him directions, moving him out to the sideline. My guess is there's 3 receivers out there, so he's trying to get him adjusted. Kayvon Thibodeaux ends up back appearing in the middle of the screen. Like I said, he's playing pissed off. He's not just playing to play. There were some indications last year. People were saying, he didn't play hard. He didn't give great effort. Whatever they're doing in New York is working for the whole team, and it's certainly working for Kayvon Thibodeaux because now he's hustled back into the middle of the field, and I just love the finish. Not scared. A lot of people are scared to hit the quarterback outside the pocket. Not Kayvon Thibodeaux. He knocked the shit out of Justin Fields there. I think he's a great player. I don't think he's just a very good player. I think he's a great player. In my opinion, he belongs in the same conversation with Aidan Hutchinson and Travon Walker. You can rank them how you wish. I would take either one on my team. Like, you put them all 3 in a hat in terms of their choices, I'll take any of them. I just love. He was the only guy that could threaten Ronnie Stanley in this game. Really, Ronnie Stanley had his way with pretty much everybody else against the Giants that game in Week 6. He's trying to set Ronnie Stanley inside. You can see him peeking. He's trying to peek over Stanley's right shoulder. Huge hole. I mean, huge lane. Look at all the seal that the Ravens have here. And if Kayvon Thibodeaux isn't able to dive back inside, this is a huge lane for Kenyon Drake, cutting it back outside here. I think he's a guy who makes plays that are not there, meaning if something looks like it could be an 8 or 10-yard gain like that play, Kayvon Thibodeaux can make the play and have it be a 4-yard gain or even a 3-yard gain. Here's an example of a split zone concept. We all saw the play in the preseason when he got cut. Pretty nasty. This one, tight end. I mean, look at the tight end's face mask. Tight end's looking across the formation. Kind of a dead giveaway. Tries to go low. Kayvon Thibodeaux, perfect. Just like the ball that you use. He gets his hips back. Hands down and forward and the eyes up. Looking for the football. Folds back inside. He's not supposed to be there. He's supposed to be getting cut by this tight end. Or at least kicked out. Kayvon Thibodeaux, if you ask me, is playing at a much higher level than he's getting credit for. And I'm a big fan, obviously, if you're listening to the audio at all. So here he is, RPO by the Packers. The tight end is going to release outside of him. So he's got flow here, and he's got motion going this way. Simultaneous to that, you got the running back crossing Aaron Rodgers' face. A lot of eye candy for him. Doesn't matter. He can fold inside, and he explodes on tackles. Like, he just doesn't tackle people and gently get them to the ground. There's an explosion because he's got powerful hips. He's a very athletic guy. I love this. This is probably my favorite play of his. Now, I'm a Ravens fan, but I have to admit, it was a great strip sack that he had of Lamar. But look at all the action you've got. Tight end releasing outside, motion here, running back crossing face. Oh, by the way, you could have Aaron Rodgers keep this football and then throw it outside to the flats. Kayvon Thibodeaux, go slow until you know, or whatever phrase you want to use. Now he sees the ball handed off, takes off. Yeah, it's like a 4 or 5 yard gain. Kayvon Thibodeaux, if you ask me, closes gaps that look larger when other people are on the field. Even other people for the Giants. They're 6-1, playing well. I think Kayvon Thibodeaux is a bigger piece of it than the stats show. And I'm trying to show you film illustrating that, using mostly end zone angle film. Would I take him over Travon Walker? Would I take him over Aidan Hutchinson? I don't know, man. If you want to have those kind of conversations, find another channel. The guy's a hell of a football player. He deals with tackles well. I have 4 examples of it. This is the one that I'm showing you. He doesn't get, expanded here, meaning he doesn't get so far expanded that the gap inside of him ends up being large enough, and that's why the ball is turned back inside here. Because Kayvon Thibodeaux is strong enough, playing with a low pad level, to turn it back inside. I think it ends up being a 4-yard gain. Guys, let me know what you think of Kayvon Thibodeaux. If you think that he's playing at as high a level as I believe he is, even though the stats are not overwhelming. Of course, he did miss 3 games. He's the edge defender on the right. Pass play, not getting there, but Ojulari is beating his guy with a classic little just rip under. Forces the fumble. Kayvon Thibodeaux recovers it. Stats aren't always a pure indication of how someone's playing. I don't pay attention to PFF grades. I just don't have time. I try to make my evaluation be just based on the film that I watch. In this case, I had 54 plays of Kayvon Thibodeaux, 54 plays, and I tried to cut them down to these 12 or 14 that I thought were representative of the plays that I saw. I'm not going to rank him above or below Hutchinson or Walker. I'm going to put them on the same level. I will make my choice after the last portion of this video. If you enjoyed my breakdown of Kayvon Thibodeaux, if you think I missed some elements or some key plays, it's entirely possible. I did not include Week 7 film in this because I completed the audio Monday in order to publish this on Tuesday morning. Appreciate you guys leaving a comment if you're a Giants fan or whatever on what you think of Kayvon Thibodeaux and how accurate you think my breakdown was of his play so far in his rookie year. The next guy we're going to talk about is Aidan Hutchinson, the number 2 pick in the NFL draft to the Lions. Look, him and Travon Walker are always going to be compared to each other, for better or for worse, and even to a lesser extent, Kayvon Thibodeaux. Their contribution in terms of sacks was inconsistent up through Week 7, and it's unfortunate that a lot of people, that's the only statistic they look at to judge and be their barometer or their measuring stick in terms of how an edge player is playing. Walker now has 2 sacks after getting one against the Giants in Week 7, and Hutchinson, who we're looking at now, is up to 4.5 sacks after generating a sack and a half and 3 quarterback hits in the Giants' 24-6 loss to the Cowboys. They'll always be linked to each other, like I said, and I think it's a little unfortunate sometimes when people try to say which guy is better than the other, because to me, you would take both of them on their team. Walker's had more of a global impact across multiple types of plays, a little bit more similar to Kayvon Thibodeaux, stepping out into the flats to play the pass, maybe a little bit more impactful against the run. But Hutchinson, to me, looks like the guy who's the most ready to attack against the pass. He's got 9 quarterback hits and 4.5 sacks, so that exceeds Walker's numbers in that area. But again, Walker's a guy who, he does everything the Jags are asking him to do. Very unselfish, and I feel like Hutchinson is in the same vein. They're a little bit more specific about him in terms of how they're using him in Detroit. He's a strong side D end in a lot of cases. Now, in this case, he's got the one technique or the 2-eye to his side. So in some people's terminology, they will call him a weak side guy. But in a moment, you're going to see his alignment is generally consistent when they get a tight end to that side. He's in a 7 technique or maybe a 6. And in some ways, that kind of limits his pass rush options when he's lined up and he's got a tight end outside of him, because he's worried about the run first, or in a lot of cases, he's stepping down like I'm showing here. Normally, they're doing that when they have a strong safety, or in this case, a linebacker lined up outside of him. So they're just trying to cover all the gaps. And in my opinion, sometimes that can slow down his pass rush progression in terms of trying to run an actual move. 3 sacks against Washington earlier in the year. Look, if it wasn't for Hutchinson, the Lions only have 7 sacks overall as a team. So he has half of their production in terms of sacks this year. Only one other guy has even more than 1 sack. I think it's Alex Anzalone, who has like a sack and a half at this point after 7 games. Early in the season, Hutchinson just didn't seem to be winning one-on-one matchups. And it's not like I have a ton of film of him doing this here, but he's having an impact, if you ask me. And look, I understand the Lions are only 1-5, but they got 2 really close losses. 38-35 to the Eagles in Week 1. And unless I'm wrong, I think the Eagles had to convert a 4th and 1 in the final minute to close that game out. And then possibly the game of the year, which I have a little bit of film of here, the 48-45 loss to the Seahawks, which was, like I said, possibly the game of the year. I like how Hutchinson's playing when they line him up like inside of a tight end. Now, there's 2 tight ends here, so he's lined up between them. To me, it kind of inhibits his pass rush, but also it enhances his ability to play the run, because these tight ends just can't handle him. Watch what he does to number 84. I mean, now granted, I think the outside tight end might, there might be some kind of clipping here against his own teammate, but this is not an isolated example. Aidan Hutchinson plays this way against the run often against tight ends. He's acclimated quickly, if you ask me, to making his run pass read and then reacting. 6'7", tremendous athlete, if you ask me. Just very underrated. And when they play him in this 7 technique, which is like inside shade of the tight end, with the 3 technique to his side, it just makes it really devastating against the run, whether it's to him or away from him. So long as he's got a force player outside him. You can see number 25 lined up outside him as a DB. He would be the force player, quote unquote, on any run action outside of the tight end. I felt like Hutchinson's athleticism was underrated during the draft process, but I guess it's difficult when you're being constantly compared to Travon Walker, who's got all the physical tools and all the athleticism on his side. I guess it makes sense. He's in the top 20 right now in sacks at 4.5. I think the league leaders is 2 guys tied for 7. Aidan Hutchinson has probably left some plays out there on the field. He thinks this is one here, even though his team gets a tackle for loss. I'm not sure that he gets credited for one there. He's got the ability to have 10 or 12 sacks this year as a rookie, because he's shown the ability to have multi-sack games when he's got an advantage in his favor. Like I said, high motor guy, athletic for being 6'7". You see him here against this zone read play. I see him checking often pre-snap with the linebackers to make sure they've got the call right. I think he's playing between 55 and 60 snaps per game. Another run play where he's lined up inside shade on the tight end. They stunt him inside a lot. This is a missed tackle that, like I said, he feels like he left this play out on the field. They stunt him inside a lot, meaning he's stepping down even when the tight end is releasing outside of him. So he's got two reads there sometimes if he's lined up between the tight end as the tackle, tight end and the tackle. Another example of him, being lined up inside the tight end, and I think he's going to pinch down again. So this kind of gets in the way of him in terms of pass rush production. When he's asked to do these things, normally it's probably 1st and 10 or a run down. So they're stemming him inside or maybe stepping him to the tackle from that 7 technique alignment. It's not a true 7 technique if you're stepping down to the tackle. A true 7 is stepping to the tight end, and your visual key would be the D or the tackle inside of you. Sometimes they use him as like this wide 3 technique in pass rush situations. It doesn't look like he's lined up in a 3, but the rush lane he's going to be responsible for is outside the guard, in between the guard and the tackle. That's a B-gap rusher, so that's why I call it a 3 technique. I'm not sure that this is the best use for him right now in terms of the matchup. He seems better suited to rushing on the edge, but the Lions have a couple of other guys who are capable of doing this. Harris among them. Those guys are capable pass rushers, so I understand why they're putting him inside there sometimes. I love the way they're using him. Don't get me wrong. I feel like his pass rush production overall would be a little higher if he wasn't lined up to the tight end side so much. At least it seemed like to me he was lined up to the tight end side. In this case, he's got 2 tight ends he's dealing with. So just like I said earlier, the visual key and the amount of time it takes him to recognize, okay, the tight ends aren't stepping to me, they're releasing outside. Let me go ahead and start running my move. I don't feel like anyone, very few people have the ability on run pass downs to go ahead and read pass and then attack and get to the quarterback, especially when the quarterback is throwing the ball as quickly as Geno Smith is here. So I don't think that, even him only having 4.5 sacks, which is the highest number for any rookie to my knowledge, is a situation where it indicates that he's not playing well. They use him occasionally in zone drops, but Kayvon Thibodeaux and Travon Walker are the rookies that are utilized more so in that manner. Typically, for a D end or an outside linebacker, that's going to be to the boundary, which is what you've got here. Short side of the field or the boundary is to our right on screen, and then this will be the field to the right side. Let me know what you think of Aidan Hutchinson so far. Look, from a 7 technique position, his pass rush options are a little more rigid. And then from that 3 technique, I'm just not sure it's matchups that are set up in his favor. Overall, I think he's given the Lions exactly what they drafted. You can see pre-snap, he's checking with number 34 for the call here. And then he's lined up to the tight end side. You got a 3 here, and he's lined up just outside eye. But he's definitely tilted to be able to play this C gap while he's got a DB outside of him. That seems to be a consistent in their defense. If he's lined up to the tight end side, they've got a DB outside of him to be the force player. If he ended up with 12 or 13 sacks this year, that wouldn't surprise me for real. If he ended up with 10, that wouldn't surprise me either. Here's an example where they're playing man, and it's going to be this weird pull scheme by the guard. This is what the Browns do to a lot of people. The left guard's going to pull and wrap all the way outside, and then the back is going to step down and then delay out to the right. There is no DB or safety to be the force player because the receiver is cracking the safety and they're playing man, so the corner came with him. So really, there's a huge gain off the right side to Aidan Hutchinson's side. And some people might say, well, he's not playing that well. Well, he's in his gap. There's no one who's playing this outside gap, what is essentially D gap outside the tight end because he's got C gap inside of him. To me, it doesn't look like tight ends can block him at all in the run game. As long as he's supported outside the tight end with a force player who can actually get involved, I feel like they'll be fine against the run. This is a trap play. Looks like a pass situation. They're going to trap this D end who's lined up as a D tackle, leaving him unblocked, kicking him out with the guard. I'll rewind this so you can see it. They've given up big plays. I know the Lions' defense has not played well all year generally. They did play a little bit better, I thought, against the Cowboys in Week 7. I did not utilize film from that because that film doesn't come out until late, and I wanted to produce this video. Let me know what you guys think of Aidan Hutchinson. Like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up with 10 sacks. It wouldn't surprise me if he ends up with 12 or 13 because at least on this team so far, it looks like the type of situation where teams might start to focus on Hutchinson and try to limit his opportunities in the pass as compared to his other teammates because he really stands out on that team in terms of sacks at 4.5 and then QB hits overall at 9. Let me know what you think of Aidan Hutchinson's play so far as a rookie and if you think he is indeed the best rookie edge defender in the NFL right now. The last guy we're going to take a look at in terms of the best rookie edge defender in the NFL in 2022 is probably what most people's pick would be, is Travon Walker, number one pick in the draft. Huge, incredibly strong, great motor, very versatile. I would say he's a little less versatile than Kayvon Thibodeaux if we're just comparing these rookies. He's more so versatile than Aidan Hutchinson, and even Boye Mafe a little bit. But in my opinion, he does a lot. Like, he's playing here as a B gap responsibility, even though he's playing from a real tight five. We got the nice end zone angle so we can see that his inside shoulder is on the outside shoulder of the tackle, but he's going to stem inside to the guard, and then he's high. I mean, he's high right now. He's too high. The guard's into him. He just anchors down, spins off of it. That's a unique play. It's not that there's not, a couple hundred guys in the NFL that can make that play. It's that he's making one in a game against a starting offensive lineman and then getting involved in the tackle. The Jags have a young, talented defense. They just nearly beat the Giants. Probably should have. They lost the touchdown, as a running back was marching into the end zone, and then they, nearly scored on the last play of the game. Travon Walker, if you ask me, is the physical leader of the defense. Foye Oluokun and Devin Lloyd are two great linebackers, and they fit well within the scheme. I love what Travon Walker does against the run. I'm not saying he's not playing well against the pass. I'm just a real big fan of how he plays against the run, especially when they put him here inside technique, on inside shade on a tight end and a 7. So you can see they got a real serious front here trying to stop the run. Makes sense because Pierce, had 31 carries for like 99 yards that game and eventually did break them. But if you ask me, Travon Walker has all the skills. If I was going to pick a guy like today, I'd pick Travon Walker. But yesterday it was Kayvon Thibodeaux, and there'd probably be a day where I would, advocate for picking Aidan Hutchinson. Me personally, I don't think I was the guy calling for Travon Walker to be taken number one. But it only took about 3 weeks of film for me to be like, okay, I realize I was wrong. They picked a guy with a tremendous motor, a ton of athletic ability, and really underrated in terms of how versatile he is. Here he is again, inside shade of a tight end on a run play. This just is very difficult to block. Strong side run plays when you have a 3 technique D tackle, so outside shade of the guard. You have a 7 technique defensive end and someone who's a badass like Travon Walker. Aidan Hutchinson plays in this same technique. As long as you've got a force player outside of you, corner, safety, whatever, you're good. It makes it damn near impossible to get to this front side inside linebacker without comboing this guy first, which then leaves Travon Walker man-to-man on a tight end in terms of the run scheme. And that's the idea, is to put someone there that the tight end cannot handle, and in this case, they cannot. Even though the tackle steps to Travon Walker, he's still able to get involved in the play. You can see the front side inside linebacker that I spot shadowed a minute ago is unblocked. Foye Oluokun, who's an incredibly underrated guy, gets involved in the tackle as well. I really love the Jags defense, for real. Now, this is him against a tackle. So he's in a 2-point stance now as opposed to a 3-point stance. So when I talk about versatility, he's asked to do a lot. He's asked to line up in different places. He's asked to line up sometimes to the strong side, sometimes to the weak side. Pierce is a monster. So he really did break that Jags defense down in certain moments. But they had moments where they shut him down. I love his hand placement. You can tell that at Georgia, he was used to competing against guys that were of, somewhat equivalent athletic ability. There's really no one who was of the same athletic ability as Travon Walker, but Georgia had a lot of guys that were close in terms of who he had to practice against every day. I think that benefits him when he gets to the NFL. He clearly was the most talented guy. That's why he went number one. But I think he's used to the competitiveness. He's used to being challenged and being pushed. And I really like the fact that Georgia played him in a 4-eye a lot of times, which is like inside shade of the tackle. They were using other guys as edge rushers. That became a knock on him in the draft, but I think it's going to help him long term. You didn't see a ton of this from him in college. You didn't see a ton of pass rushes off the edge. I mean, you saw some, and we've only got 2 sacks so far through 7 games, all right? But we have 27 tackles, I think 14 solo, 3 tackles for loss. Yeah, he only has, I think, 5 quarterback hits, maybe 4, whereas Aidan Hutchinson has 9. But I'll be honest with you, I have noticed that Travon Walker's incredibly unselfish. He runs a lot of stunts where he's trying to free up other guys, and that's just a part of the Jags scheme, and I think he deserves credit for that. Am I saying that there's probably another 3 or 4 QB hits out there for him this year, maybe another sack if he's not running those stunts. Yeah, I definitely think that's possible. All right, another run play. Now, I showed you him lined up in a 7, inside shade on the tight end. Also showed you lined up, him outside shade of the tackle with no tight end there. That was the play against the Texans. Now he is here in a wide 9, 2-point stance against the tight end, and it's just no match. It's just no match. He's going to be able to physically take that tight end wherever he wants to go, especially if it's a rookie. He's in my opinion, Travon Walker's playing at an elite level. Where do you rank him in the top 5, top 8, top 10 in terms of edge defenders right now? I'm not sure that you really rank him anywhere near there, to be honest with you. But I just know for a rookie, he's playing at a really high level. When I talked about his unselfishness, here's what I mean. This is just a freight train stunt. He's going through the B gap from a wide alignment. So he's lined up outside the tight end. And so he's going to let the tight end release in the pass route. And then he's going to just freight train into the B gap right at the front side hip of the quarterback, taking the guard with him. The tackle steps down, allowing the D tackle to loop around. Now, they don't, generate a sack here, right? Certainly Travon Walker doesn't. But this is a cumulative effect. I mean, if you do that to an NFL offensive lineman one play, they kind of know that, there's nothing they can really do with you. I find this to be a tremendously interesting play, not just from the physical standpoint, the explosiveness, 6'5", 275, 280 pounds, whatever he is at this point, but the willingness to execute so many techniques. I think he's asked to do as wide a variety of things as Kayvon Thibodeaux is, and in fact, in some cases, a little bit more. All right, something else that's really impressive about him, his awareness. When you move across multiple techniques, you would think there would be a loss of awareness. If you're only asked to do 3 techniques, you would think it's somewhat easy to have a high level awareness across those 3 techniques. In my opinion, Travon Walker's asked to do, this is just a general number, he's asked to execute 6 or 7 techniques during the course of a given game. This one is a pass set by the tackle, and you can see the quarterback's back is to him, slight little play action look. He's also got flow coming to him with the wheel route. They're just trying to clear out this defender for the screen. And Travon Walker is just elite with his awareness. If I don't play Madden now, so I don't know how they do rankings. Back in my day, it was just all numerical. I think if you looked at his ratings like in a column or maybe a row going all the way across, it would all have to be like 85 plus, 86 plus, something like that. And then you'd probably have 3 or 4 of them that are like 93, 94s. I just think this is a beautiful play. It's at week 1. His first sack and his first interception came in the same week. So, splash plays right off the bat. Has he had as many splash plays since then? No, he hasn't. I'm not trying to tell you that he has. But I feel like this is a nice job of being able to have a pressure key on the tackle. And then he's got a visual key in the backfield, so he's able to see what's going on in the backfield while running that tackle back. He senses that it's just too easy here, but I think he also sees the guard cross underneath of him and kind of lead out. That's not a typical pass rush or pass pro situation. I'm talking about this guy here. So he recognizes that, folds underneath, and it's not an anomaly. He made a very similar play in the same game. Now, he didn't pick it off, but he made the tackle. Little different formation. You can see they got a receiver stepping to him, and it's kind of one of those situations, if you ask me, where Travon Walker's got to understand, hey, they're not legitimately going to have a receiver try to pass pro me. And he just makes the tackle. It reminds me, I can only imagine the hell that college offenses must have felt that they were in, dealing with Georgia in college last year with a guy like Travon Walker. Being rotated in and out of the game, they probably felt great, the plays when he was off, because there was considerable amount of time when he was off the field, because they just had so many talented dudes. I can't imagine a college team trying to deal with him, Jordan Davis, Devonta Wyatt, Nakobe Dean, the linebacker that's at Green Bay. Let me know what you think. If I was going to vote right now, my vote probably would be Travon Walker. He's got a whole lot more tackles than Aidan Hutchinson. They both are playing a lot. I think Travon Walker's playing like 90, 92% of the snaps, if I remember correct. Now, everything's not perfect. He's had some losses early in the season. Here's one against Washington on a touchdown pass. He's not winning that matchup against the left tackle in this snap. I think he lets the guy get into his chest, kind of jump him a little bit. The guy starts to set and then jumps him, which means step towards Walker. And once he jumps him, he kind of gets into Walker's chest, and the rep is kind of over at that point. So it's not like every rep is a win for him. Every rep isn't a win for Kayvon Thibodeaux and Aidan Hutchinson either. I don't look at the new stat pass rush win rate. I do think it's a legitimate stat. I'm glad they have things like that now, to kind of tell you when a guy is playing better. I don't think he's really suited for this. Playing in a 3 technique and pass rushing. He's just trying to rip here. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a screen to the opposite side. I feel like the Jags are really intent on getting pressure with 4 guys. Sometimes they bring 5. I haven't watched every snap that they've played up. I've watched a lot this year because I'm really interested in their defense. Huge fan of Devin Lloyd. Big fan of Travon Walker. Just want to see how far this team can rise in 1 year. Here's another loss. This is against a tight end. But also sometimes, and I explained this a little bit talking about Kayvon Thibodeaux, I think it's designed for him to rush outside because they're trying to free up Boye and running through the inside gap. So, just so you know, every edge rusher or D lineman in general doesn't have a two-way go in terms of his choice on every rep, every snap. Boye is reading the tight end, so it's a read blitz. Once he pass sets, Travon Walker's rush lane is outside. Okay, so does it go down as a loss for him? Yeah, sure, it does. Right? But in my opinion, he's intentionally holding. That's a great catch. Obviously that's a talented dude for a rookie. Can't believe he slipped as far as he did. But Boye reading the pass set by the tight end and then delayed rushing through the inside C gap. So when I say he doesn't have a two-way go, like Walker on this play, on this call, whatever it is, he's not allowed to stunt inside here. Why? Because that's where Aluakin's going if he gets a pass read. Now, if this tight end releases, then that's different. Because now I presume that Aluakin's going to cover him. That's why this is a delayed blitz. Because he's reading the tight end, seeing the pass pro. I don't have to worry about him. All right, let's go. So every rep isn't a win for Travon Walker, but that doesn't surprise me. There certainly will be games where most reps are going to feel like a win. I would not want to play against this dude, to be honest with you. Another loss, lined up inside. I would say that this is the thing that I would not want to see him doing if I was a Jags fan that often. But sometimes you got to get, as many pass rushers on the field, especially when you have Arden Key, you have Travon Walker, you have Josh Allen. So you got to get as many of those guys on the field as possible. Somebody's got to move down inside. Sometimes it's Arden Key, sometimes it's Travon Walker. I think sometimes they just do it by matchup. That's how we used to do it, was just pick, who we wanted him to match up with on a particular play. All right, so last type of play I want to show you, this is pass drops. I don't think Travon Walker is as good at this, as naturally gifted as Kayvon Thibodeaux. Kayvon Thibodeaux is really he has great hips and very smart and savvy taking pass drops. Travon Walker ain't bad either. Now, you're not getting all 22 here, but you saw that you had 2 tight ends here. One of them releases outside, only got so much screen to draw on, and then one of them releases inside and kind of checks up. As this play develops, watch Matt Ryan's helmet. He's definitely looking to the side of the field where Travon Walker is. I mean, he's clearly over here reading. You have one tight end right here and then another one off screen to our left, which is where Travon Walker's located. So Travon Walker's a part of the read. He's a part of the read there. Am I saying that he caused that fumble? Well, I mean, he was in good coverage relationship being in between the 2 tight ends. Certainly there was other people involved, other DBs or safeties. I think Travon Walker is a capable pass drop guy, particularly to the boundary. Here's another one against the Colts again to the right. And he gets involved in a tackle. Complete player, man. Complete player. When you draft a guy number 1, you're looking for everything. And Travon Walker's got it all. Like, if I was going to vote today, as I record this on Tuesday morning, I would say my vote is Travon Walker. But if you're a Lions fan and you're really, really happy with the Aidan Hutchinson pick, you should be. I would stick with Aidan Hutchinson if I were you. If you're a Giants fan, you can't complain about Kayvon Thibodeaux either. And some of the other guys that I mentioned in this video, Karlaftis, Ebiketie, Boye Mafe, who's really underrated. I think it's a really talented group. I think it's a really talented. There's other guys that were drafted as edge rushers that are talented as well. I chose to focus on these 6, even though the thumbnail pick only shows 5. I just felt like Boye Mafe's athleticism, his size, him playing on kickoff, and his ability to defend the run, I felt like that needed to be mentioned, or I'd be remiss. Let me know in the comment section who you think is the best rookie edge defender in the NFL so far in 2022.